Hello, this is Derek Arden, and tonight I'm with Mike Pagan. Mike Pagan is a friend of mine, a fellow speaker, and a colleague from the Professional Speaking Association. Mike knows I was Zoom bombed on my Monday night chat show, and he's going to ask me a few questions about what happened and how it happened. Mike, thanks very much indeed for joining me.
No problem. I saw you put a note out that you'd been Zoom bombed, and I thought, I was thinking, we've all suddenly, over the last few months, suddenly become experts or had to become experts in Zoom. And I know that you are not technically the most comfortable, shall we say, as I'm not. And therefore, for you to get Zoom bombed, I can't imagine what that was like for you. So I thought, I'll say, let's have a little chat about it and see what we can do. So what is Zoom bombing?
Well, that's interesting because some people don't know. I'd heard about it, but I didn't think it would happen to me. They're all the things. Well, Zoom bomb is where somebody, perhaps in their loft in somewhere, who's a computer geek, sets up a program, trolls the internet, and looks for a gap in a meeting going on Zoom. The reason for that is that Zoom had 20 million users, hosts they're called, in November last year, and it's now got 200 million. So there's been gaps in their security. They're working hard on it, but it is one of the most easy platforms to use. And I was shocked when it happened to me, but I've learned since that I could have had better security settings. I thought I'd had it all right. I'd done 16 of these meetings with lots of people on them, and they'd all worked fine. But in the middle of this meeting, I went to share my screen with a fellow speaker of mine, and at that moment my screen locked and I was locked out of my own computer in the middle of a meeting I was hosting. So the rule is for us as speakers, Mike, isn't it? Keep calm, don't panic. So I'm not panicking, but I'm trying to figure out what to do. I went on my second computer.
Did you pull out the wire or something? That's what I'd have gone for.
Yeah, you know, it's like when your computer crashes in front of 500 people and you haven't plugged it into the mains. We've all done that as well, haven't we? Anyway, so I finally got in after 5 minutes, and it didn't feel right. I was muted, so I unmuted myself, and at that point, a pornographic image came up, which was absolutely disgusting. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it was disgusting, and it was being shown to all my guests on the show. I did panic at that point and shouted, "End the meeting, log out, that's it." And I've got to be honest with you, Mike, I sat there for about an hour in shock, spoke to my presenter, Will Kintish, who I was interviewing, and he went, wow, wow, wow. And so I didn't sleep very well that night. I called a few of my friends the next day, and I worked out, was I going to close the program down and close Zoom down and not do it again? But I'm not someone that's defeated. I decided
had a worm or something got into your system, so you were now unsafe for Zooming, I suppose.
Well, I thought I was safe before, but there must have been, I hadn't got the security settings as good as I should have done. So perhaps I should talk you through what I did.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that because even today in the press, the UK government is now doing parliamentary time via Zoom. So clearly it's got to be pretty safe if a government's going to work through it. So you've obviously come up with sort of a few simple tips and techniques that you've now put in place so that you're going to be bulletproof going forward. And hopefully those of your friends and colleagues watching this will take on board as well. And I'm going to learn a few things as well. So fire away.
Well, the first thing that was clear was I wasn't asking people to register. And I had mistakenly put the link on Twitter during the day. So that could have been trolled. And someone's told me before, don't have your links on open platforms. I'd also put the link in my newsletter and someone might have passed that on. So there was actually no firewall to get in. As long as they clicked on the link, that was fine. And it worked for a couple of months. So I thought that was okay, but it's not okay. That's what you really need to know.
So do not promote the public link publicly.
Absolutely. Don't do that. But if you have done, there's still some ways to control it, which I've put in place. So the first thing is, now when I set up a meeting, I ask people to register. They must register, which means that the link I send them is a link to register on Zoom in my account. When they register, It then comes up at the bottom of that particular page for me, and if I know them, I can send them the link. If I don't know them, I can ask some questions, and or not allow them into the meeting. Then they get the link, which is fine, so I know them. And then when they enter the meeting, I tell them to enter the meeting early because I'm going to lock the meeting afterwards, which is something we need to come back to. So okay. I let them in. They come up in the control box, and as long as they are who they say, I let them in. So that means probably a troll can't get in at that stage. And having let everybody in, I go down to the security box, which I'm going down to now. Click on the security box and lock the meeting. That means nobody else can get in after that. So no.
Okay, I realise we can't see that at the moment, but where is the security box in relation if somebody's not used it before?
So you put your mouse over the at the bottom of the screen, move it along to three icons, and the third icon is security. You click on that and you tick lock meeting. You also untick share screen, which is below that, and you also untick the ability to rename themselves. So you don't want anyone that's told you they're Joe Bloggs coming in and then changing their name and confusing you. So that's what I did today. We didn't have any problems, and it worked really well. So the points there are to make people register, and it's not an issue. I thought this would be an issue, put people coming into the meeting, but Mike, they didn't, and it was easy, and everybody said it was easy. Everybody said it worked well, so there appeared to be no problem.
And that's sort of an extra step in comparison to when I would normally, if I'm sending out an invitation via email, which has been triggered by the scheduling part of Zoom, this is an extra step you're putting in there.
That's what I did today, and it worked well. I was thinking maybe for next week I'd take that step out, but I'm not going to because it worked well. And I was able, I don't know if I've got it here, I was able to print out a list in advance of the people that had registered with their emails. So I had it by me. So if Mike Pagan was on it, that was fine, and I'd memorized it really. But if John Smith came in, a sort of common name that might be by a troll trying to get it admitted, I just wouldn't let them in. It was too painful, too embarrassing, and too shocking on Monday night, the Zoom bombing.
And this is the reality. That's why we're doing this safety brief now, because the reality check is, I know you're a professional. Your reputation is what you strive to grow the business from. The clients, you certainly don't want to look problematic or vulnerable in that environment. So hence, I can only empathize with you on how you felt the other night. So that's why this is so important for us all using Zoom. And Teams is another one, which is a little bit harder to use if you're not actually on 365 and other things. Google Hangouts, they're all there. But the big message is there's some ugly perpetrators. That's the word I'll stick with tonight, doing some silly stuff. So any other tips that you've got from the experience, as ugly as it was, that I or others could take on board?
I don't think from that, but I've used the chat box. When I do this, I mute everybody, and then towards the end, I unmute them. People don't seem to ask questions in the chat box, but when you unmute them, then I tend to stop the recording and allow people to say anything they want to off the record when I run these meetings. If people want to send me an email or link to me on LinkedIn, I'll be delighted for them to join. I will, of course, check them out now, Mike, because I'm much more careful, much more cautious. And, there we are. Mike, I'm really appreciative for you coming on, asking me the questions about Zoom this morning on email. I know that you're on the pace on it, and you run a great business. Is there one last thing you'd like to add or talk
Well,
to?
no, I mean, the key one for me is, as I said right from the start, I was shocked, surprised and worried when I saw your note saying what had happened. Because it's one of those things you always hear about somebody else, but it's when it's somebody close, you think, oh, a second, I need to ask some questions here and find out more. Because the idea of looking like a Muppet or whatever language we want to use is not what we strive for. So if I've learned something, and I have from what you've done here, and if others watching this have learned something, then this is exactly why we've done it.
Mike Pagan, thanks for joining me, and thanks for asking me the tricky questions.
No problem. My pleasure.
Talking to you shortly.